There are people born not to adapt to the world, but to redefine it. In the great flow of global football history, the name Lionel Andres Messi is no longer merely the designation of a superstar player. It has become a cultural icon, the most magical chapter in the chronicle of human will and talent. People often praise him as a natural genius, a king of football, possessing steps as graceful as gliding on the grass, dribbles that upturn all laws of physics, and a tactical vision far ahead of his time. But if we only look at the brilliant aura of the Ballon d'Ors, of the prestigious World Cup trophy under the magnificent lights of the Lusail Stadium in 2022, we have accidentally missed the most sacred core that makes up Messi's greatness. Messi's greatness was not born in silk or a smooth path. It was forged from the ashes of bitter defeats, from tears rolling down in the darkness of the dressing room, from the physical pain of a 10-year-old child who had to inject a needle into his own leg every night to seek a chance to grow up normally, and from the ruthless waves of criticism from his very own homeland. Lionel Messi's journey began in Rosario, a poor industrial city in Argentina, where football is not just a sport, but a religion, the only escape route for street children. Born into an ordinary working-class family, his father was a steel factory worker and his mother was a part-time cleaner. The boy Leo, from the moment he knew how to walk, was attached to the round ball. On the dusty pitches of the Grandoli neighborhood, a skinny little boy, much smaller than his peers, astonished everyone with his agile feet and a magical ability to control the ball. The person who discovered and encouraged his talent the earliest was his grandmother Celia, whom later, every time he scored a goal, Messi would point two fingers to the sky to remember. However, life has never been an easy fairy tale. At the age of 11, when his talent began to bloom in the jersey of the Newell's Old Boys youth team, Messi had to face a cruel sentence of fate, growth hormone deficiency, or G.H.D. This disease meant that his body would stop growing naturally. The boy Leo at that time was only 1.27 meters tall. Without money for treatment, the dream of becoming a professional player would be permanently closed before it could even begin. The treatment cost was up to $900 per month, a huge number, far beyond the financial capacity of a working-class family and even his club at that time. The treatment process was an ultimate test of courage for a child. Every night he had to inject a needle into his own leg, day after day, week after week, lasting for 3 long years. It was extremely painful, but the fear of not being able to play football was greater than the fear of the needle. In the context of the Argentine economic crisis, Messi's family fell into a deadlock. Not a single club in his homeland dared to risk investing a large amount of money in a tiny athlete with an uncertain future. That was the first failure of his life, a bitter rejection from the very place he was born. Destiny only changed when Carlos Rexach, technical director of FC Barcelona, witnessed Leo playing football. He was convinced immediately and decided to sign a historic contract on a paper napkin at a restaurant in Spain. In 2000, the 13-year-old boy had to leave his family, leave his beloved hometown of Rosario to cross the ocean to a completely strange world, the La Masia Academy. Sacrifice and loneliness began to take root from there. Overcoming physical adversity, Messi rose rapidly at Barca and quickly became the brightest star of world football under the reign of Pep Guardiola. He won title after title, continuously broke scoring records and monopolized the Ballon d'Ors. But behind the brilliant aura of that alien team were terrible pressures that only insiders could understand. People usually only remember the victories, but Messi's journey at Barcelona was full of wounds. Those were the persistent thigh muscle injuries in the 2006 to 2008 period that at one point threatened to snap his career right when it was blooming, forcing him to change his entire nutrition and training regimen. Those were the painful defeats against Inter Milan in 2010 and Chelsea in 2012 in the Champions League semifinals, when Messi himself missed the decisive penalty against Chelsea at Camp Nou. Tears fell in the dressing room, where he tortured himself for making the club fail. The real crisis struck during Barcelona's decline period from 2017 to 2020. Although Messi still played with genius form, one swallow does not make a summer. Humiliating and catastrophic defeats came in succession when the team suffered an unimaginable comeback by AS Roma in 2018, the Anfield nightmare against Liverpool in 2019, despite winning 3-0 in the first leg, and the climax of pain was the disastrous 8-2 loss to Bayern Munich in 2020. The image of Messi standing dazed and helpless in the middle of the pitch, his eyes staring blankly at the scoreboard, was the symbol of the loneliness of a genius carrying a crumbling collective on his shoulders. He was criticized as a silent captain, lacking leadership personality and not knowing how to lift the spirit of his teammates in adversity. If the failures at the club level were superficial wounds, then the bitterness in the jersey of the national team were like knives stabbing deep into Messi's heart, leaving psychological scars that would never heal. For more than a decade, Messi had to live in the giant shadow of the legend Diego Maradona. The Argentine people loved Maradona because he possessed the personality of a street hero, rebellious and defiant, while they doubted Messi, a boy who left his homeland at the age of 13 and had a look that was too quiet. They called him an outsider, accused him of not having Argentine blood, only knowing to play well for Barcelona for money and fame, and completely harmless when returning to serve his country. That injustice reached the ultimate point of tragedy through 3 consecutive failed finals. At the 2014 World Cup on Brazilian soil, Argentina collapsed against the Germans in extra time, leaving the image of Messi staring at the golden trophy with eyes of ultimate regret. For the next 2 consecutive years, at the 2015 and 2016 Copa América, Argentina both lost to Chile in the risky penalty shootouts. The 2016 loss in the U.S. was the rock bottom in Messi's life. The image of him sitting lonely on the technical bench, sobbing like a child after missing the first penalty, shocked the world. He choked up announcing his retirement from the national team at the age of 29 because he felt everything was over. He had tried his best, but this title was not for him. That declaration was not cowardice, but the surrender of a soul that had been drained of strength by toxic expectations and the hammer of public opinion. He became the villain of an entire nation, insulted by his own hometown media as the greatest failure in history. In the summer of 2021, due to financial management mistakes by the old board, Barcelona could not extend his contract due to La Liga's salary cap regulations. Messi accepted a 50% salary cut, prepared everything to sign a new contract, but at the last moment he received a notice that the club could not retain him. The farewell press conference at Camp Nou on August 8, 2021, took away the tears of millions of fans. That resilient man stepped up to the podium, burst into tears before he could say a word, and had to use a tissue handed by his wife to wipe away the bitter tears. He was pushed out to the street by the very club to which he had dedicated his entire youth, having to move to Paris Saint-Germain in a rush and astonishment. In Paris, he continued to face a new environment, boos and whistles from his own home fans when the team was eliminated from the Champions League. Failure still seemed unwilling to let go that giant with a small body. But destiny has its very own way of operating. It pushes humans to the bottom of hell just to test if they are worthy of the peak of heaven. After so many years of perseverance, after times of falling and then standing up again, Messi was rewarded with a scenario that could not be crazier and more complete. In the summer of 2021, right before leaving Barca, he and Argentina quenched their title thirst with the Copa América championship right on the Maracanã holy ground of their arch-rival Brazil. And then, on December 18, 2022, in Qatar, the best World Cup final in football history took place. Messi scored a brace, experienced breathless moments when France continuously equalized, and then finally won in the fateful penalty shootout. The image of Messi kneeling down on the field, his radiant smile mixing with tears of happiness, and the moment he lifted the World Cup trophy in the traditional bisht cloak was the most perfect ending to an epic poem. He no longer needed to be compared to anyone because he had officially stepped into the temple of immortal legends, a true king. The complete journey of Lionel Messi's football life is not just an entertainment story of the king's sport, but it is a profound human life lesson, an endless source of inspiration for anyone struggling with the adversities of life. The first lesson is never to let circumstances define your limits. If the 11-year-old boy Messi had accepted giving up in the face of growth hormone deficiency, the world would have lost a genius. The starting circumstance may be inferior, physical defect may be a barrier, but if the will is strong enough, you can turn disadvantages into your own unique weapon. The second lesson is that failure is not the end, it is a test of patience. Messi lost 4 major finals, was once so humiliated that he had to retire from the national team. But what makes his greatness is not that he never fell, but the way he stood up after each fall, wiping away his tears to continue fighting. Success does not come early, it comes right when we deserve it most. Next is the value of consistency and loyalty to ideals. In a football world full of temptations and pragmatism, Messi always plays football with a primal, pure love, just like he still played in the dusty streets of Rosario. The silence, patiently responding to criticisms with performances on the pitch, is a great lesson about a man's mettle. No need to use words to justify. Let the results determine your value. Finally, Messi's life teaches us that storms can last for 1 year, 10 years, or even a whole youth. But as long as you do not turn your back on your dream, the dawn will surely break. Whenever you feel deadlocked and want to give up before the storms of life, remember the image of the 11-year-old boy injecting a needle into his leg every night, and the 35-year-old man lifting the World Golden Trophy under the sky of Qatar. Keep walking, because who knows, the most beautiful chapter in your life is still ahead.